Guys, episode 4 of the QB1 Experience Podcast. Your host and co-host, Coach Perry. Got Coach Orth down in
Duval. You well, baby.
And we got Coach Patrick, the Clemsonite, up in the great city of Greenville. If you haven't been, you need to go. It's a beautiful place.
G Vegas, baby. Y'all come on.
G Vegas.
G Vegas.
All right, episode 4, we are talking about college football conference realignment. We are talking NIL and transfer portal, but at the high school level, and how that has transitioned from college to high school, what states allow it, what states don't. And then lastly, we are going to talk about our favorite topic, which is the most overhyped mechanic when it comes to quarterback training. We all know there are hundreds of guys out there that are focusing on not only the wrong stuff, but things that just do not translate to actual football. Most likely somebody that has not played the position when the Bullets are live. They have seen some cool YouTube videos and realized that there were no other coaches in their area. So they were the first to market, and now they're Mr. Know-It-All. But they never actually did anything. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. And excited for the folks on the comments in our both Instagram and YouTube video when this is posted to hear the most ridiculous drill and or mechanic ever talked about while during a quarterback session. But first, what is happening in Duval County in Greenville, guys?
Duval is popping as usual, man. Loving life, 80s. Dude, it is beautiful down here. Training is getting out of control. We are not teaching the underhand backwards throw down here in Jacksonville, but we should probably start doing that because it seems like it's a new popular thing. But no, we're having a good time, man. Excited to be on here tonight and talking with you guys.
Fired up. We've had a bunch of rain the past week, but the guys are ready to go this week. Sunny and 80, starting to get some of that Jacksonville weather up here, so we're ready to go.
Spinning the bean like Mean Joe Green. All right, guys. Conference realignment. I remember 10 years ago, actually been 12 years ago, Missouri, Texas A&M, head to the SEC.
It's been that long?
Yeah, 12 years. You've had Nebraska leave the Big 12, head to the Big 10. Colorado went to the Pac-12. They were a huge Big 12 conference, a little shakeup. And then now, fast forward to 2024, Pac-12 is dissolved no longer. Many schools have migrated to the Big 10, some to the ACC, some without a home. Really, really interesting to see how that has played out. The other thing in conjunction with that and with the portal and with NIL, you are seeing coaches more than ever step down from head coaching jobs, take coordinator roles because they just want to coach football. They don't want to deal with all the BS. And as we've talked and hammered home the last few weeks, there's a lot of BS out there when it comes to that. Transfer portal and NIL, a lot of uncertainty. I'm sure there will be some government overreach coming soon. If you've listened to our full episode, you know how I think on those topics. But anyway, you've got Stanford to the ACC. Want to get your thoughts on what that looks like for your, in your opinion, potential move of Clemson and Florida State to the ACC or SEC. I apologize, but the ACC has got their talons hooked into those two schools, and they will not let them go because if they do, that conference folds.
They lose everything. It's weird, and I really don't know, and forgive my ignorance as it relates to all this realignment. You have Stanford out in California joining the Atlantic Coast Conference. Like, make that make sense to me. Clemson's now going to be traveling out to Stanford. We're going to be basically playing a bowl game for a regular season game, which is interesting. I think it's odd how everything's unraveled in the past year or so. Clemson and Florida State are now looking, even I think North Carolina has been in talks of trying to get out as well. I think North Carolina might be the first one to go. They're going to end up like even the SEC is going to have a massive conference in 2024. If you look, or is it this year? Yeah,
Yep,
this year, right? If you look at those schedules, I mean, how do those guys survive playing those games? I mean, you're playing playoff games almost every single week. And then, in my opinion, I know Stanford's had good seasons. The teams that the ACCs have added, it doesn't add to the overall standard of a high-performing conference. We're just getting in other middle-tier teams that doesn't promote wins. And at this day and age, when you have South Carolina might have one of the toughest schedules I've ever seen, so is Oklahoma. When you got those teams that are playing big-time matchups week in and week out, and then you look at a team, just call it Florida State or Clemson, that's 11-1 or a 12-0 ACC champ, and here comes the strength of schedule conversation. And a good thing the playoff is expanding, but
yeah,
I feel like there's got to be a way to be a little bit more inclusive with the SEC and ACC in play outside of rivals. Like I think people have talked about like larger conferences, whether it's East, West, South, North, however you want to do it, but you're going to find teams that are having to play tremendously tough schedules and teams that can float by in ways. I think the Big Ten's gotten better with some of the teams they're going to be adding, but I think ACC could be dissolved here in the next couple of years, just like the Pac-12 did.
So say you're the head of those conference, say the ACC, you're the head of the ACC. It's your job to make sure that it does not dissolve. What do you do to keep teams, and what do you do to make it become an SEC? Like make it become a caliber to where people want to come? How do you even do that? What, more TV time? Like they all have their own networks. So,
that's just another area where I don't have a great understanding as with like all these media and TV contracts. But like you could, I don't know how you make it more advantageous for the teams outside those deals, but
right. Because now you're looking at the SEC has everybody. I mean, you think like Texas and all the guys that were some of the best teams in the other conferences are now back in the SEC. So, the week in, week out, I mean, the 12-team playoff is going to be huge to see who can really compete. But at the end of the day, South Carolina is playing against, 10 SEC teams that are top tier, and then having to now go into the playoff and do the same. So,
South Carolina is at such a disadvantage. I mean, do you know how good of a freaking football team you got to be to go 10-2 with that schedule? And then just cross your fingers that you make like your top 15. I mean, they could ball out, be really, really good, go 9-3, 10-2, and you're not sniffing the playoffs still.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the college football playoff committee weighs in on strength of schedule. I know they like to, and I actually think they set a really strong precedent this past playoff. And I know the Florida State fans are going to go up in arms and throw a hissy fit here, but the truth of the matter is that Florida State was not one of the top 4 teams in the country without Jordan Travis. They were not. And it's just the reality of it. With Jordan Travis in the lineup, were they? There's no question about it. I mean, the dude was a difference maker. It's like, does Auburn win the national title with Cam Newton's run without Cam Newton? And the answer is no. They went 7-5 the following year.
Yeah.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how they weigh in on the strength of schedule. It's going to honestly look a lot more like college basketball with a net ranking, right? So I agree. I think that schools like South Carolina, Missouri, Mississippi State are at a disadvantage. But, I mean, look at the way that Ole Miss has used the portal. I mean, they've got the best – them and Ohio State have the best lineup in college football. And you're like, Ole Miss, really? We had a coach that bought in to the portal. He bought into NIL. He runs a fun, creative offense. They play really hard on defense. They got a great defensive coordinator. And – I mean, they're barring some crazy injuries, they are almost a sure lock for the 12-team playoff. So I think it can be done.
I think with we talk about NIL and portal and recruiting, I think, the SEC brand now is a huge selling point to players. Like, you want to go show tape to some NFL teams, or playing this type of competition week in and week out is a huge selling point as well. And when you got, I don't know how many of the last national championships have been SEC. I guarantee you it's probably 8 out of the last 12 or something ridiculous like that. But I mean, that's a big stamp.
Yeah. Going back to what you said earlier about Stanford being out in the West Coast playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference, like that really to me isn't going to drive viewer traffic. I mean, in my opinion, I'm not going to really care to watch Duke versus Stanford, the battle of the nerds. I just don't care about that game, and I know that Stanford was trying to find a place, and you're going to see more and more of that as we go along. Those West Coast teams that are supposedly, prestigious programs are going to want to get into the ACC and then potentially jump to the SEC, because the SEC is not just going to let everybody in. They're going to really be very picky and pick the best teams that they think, because they're going to make that big one major conference. That's what their goal is, to become the absolute powerhouse, which obviously you can argue that they are the best conference, and I think they are. But yeah. So
I think you almost have to have big. No, obviously with the NFL it's 32 teams and AFC, NFC, but you almost want to do something similar to that and have sub conferences within. And I think they're doing that now in the SEC and ACC, where it's like the highest record of the two teams is going to go to the championship game. But doing that with, like, it's just going to become more like college basketball, to your point, Perry. Like, I think you're going to have you're going to end up having a 4-team. You can create really large conferences and have 4-team playoffs for conference championships, or just crown regular season conference champions and then not play a championship game. And then, when it comes to the national level, they're going to end up expanding that thing to 24 teams. I mean,
look at what they're doing now. If you look at what they're doing, they're drifting to 2 major conferences with a 12-team playoff. What does that sound like?
The NFL.
The NFL. With subdivisions within it, right? You've got your AFC, NFC, you've got your AFC North, AFC South, West, and North, West, South. Am I missing one? Yeah, and East, right? So we need
to get you back in geography class.
Yeah, we go. But that's where they're heading, and I think that's where they're heading with the SEC and the Big Ten. And it's only a matter of time before there are 2 major conferences. They will end up playing a schedule much like the NFL, where you'll play, if you're playing 12 games, you're going to play 8 SEC and 4 Big Ten. And then, top 12 teams from each side will, top 6 from each side will make the playoffs. And
so obviously I played in the group of 5. Group of 5 conferences, they do not play the strength of schedule that the Power 5 schools do, obviously. And so, hearing about the 12-team playoff, that gives guys like, opportunities to make it in, right? But it goes off of the top 5 winners of the championship games in the Power 5 conferences, and then the rest of the teams are in the top whatever ranking. So you have to be basically undefeated and play and have beaten maybe a couple top tier teams to make it as a group of 5 school. And like you guys are talking about AFC, NFC, where do you think the group of 5 teams that do have a lot of good players and a lot of good players that potentially played at Power 5 schools, how does that fit, and how does recruiting and all of that go into play with that?
I think it helps recruiting for those G5 schools. I think the argument you're going to see is very similar to the past few years with the 14 playoff. Is like, do you want to see an undefeated, really solid App State team get in over a 3-loss LSU team? And people are going to go up in arms about that.
Yeah. That's why it's amazing that 12-team playoff.
Yeah. But I think people are going to be like, well, we're going to, especially for the playoff committee standpoint and these bigger schools, like that's a really big money making opportunity, especially from our viewership. When you have a South Carolina with a lot of alums, like if they go 10-2, really good season, fighting for that 16 seed spot, and you got a really, really good G5 school, I'm wanting to get South Carolina involved for the money-making opportunity to go sell out Williams-Brice at home or wherever it is that the games. I mean, they have to go away, but go sell out another really, really large school, and you get a lot of viewership online. But I just think you're gonna see just how it is now. I mean, like, and that's why I feel like it's been frustrating in the college football level because I feel like basketball, baseball, I mean, all these other sports, they've gotten it right, and they haven't had to deviate and change the way they run their schedules, their conferences, the playoffs. You look at it in professional sports, you never see this stuff. Like, they've gotten it figured out. It's right. And I feel like every other year people are complaining about how the college football's run. And it's just like it's one wrench like thrown to another can of worms opening up. Like, it's just always chaos. I don't know why it takes this trial by error methodology to get something that makes sense.
I think for the group of five, you'd probably see about 2 teams per year, maybe 1 or 2. You know, think back to UCF when they beat Auburn in that bowl game and they claimed to be the national champions, right? Everybody laughs about that, but
they were good.
They were good, man. They were really good. And everybody wants to say, well, Auburn didn't show up. Well, you know, Auburn still had a good team, and they still whooped them. So
beat Alabama.
They beat Alabama, right. So, you know, and I'm not saying UCF should be the national champions, but now it gives UCF an opportunity to go showcase against multiple teams in the playoff and see if they can do anything. And I think that's a really cool feature for college football.
You know what I would, and this will be the last thing, then we'll need to get on to topic number 2. What I would love to see, especially with the G5, is you're having, no offense to my Vandy alums out there, but they're consistently 0-12, 1-11, 2-10. But you've got App State, you've got South Alabama, you've got a UAB, you've got a Troy, who is 10-2, 11-1, 12-0, making the playoff, right? You suck, you go down a league, right? You play well, you go up a league, right? They swap. If they did a Premier League with college football,
oh my gosh,
dude, it would be electric. It would be electric. I don't know how and why they haven't gone to that model yet, but I mean, you look at like where South Alabama was headed with Kane Womack as the coach. I mean, you know, you look at where App State is at. You look at where Liberty is at right now. Liberty would be somebody that if they have another good year, they would be wearing a school like South Carolina out of the A-level league, right? So I'd be curious to see if they ever get to that level. But anyway, that is a great discussion. All right, NIL, transfer portal, high school. Are you guys seeing any of that in Greenville or Jacksonville?
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot. Thankfully, I work with a lot of kids and parents where that's not a priority right now, which has been refreshing for sure. And I'm not sure how I'd go about navigating that, but so I can't speak to it personally. I've seen it with some larger recruits and people I've heard about, which is very interesting from just even considering colleges, these kids thinking about money for one. And I know we've talked about that, but even some of the marketing deals that these high school seniors are getting, which is nuts. I mean, like, hats off to these kids that have made a name for themselves and have 50,000 followers on Instagram and are verified and can run a little deal and make money. I think it's just blowing kids' heads up, though. Like, you're good, but man, you ain't done nothing yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I got a text. So I have a quarterback. I'm not going to share his name, but he was an early enrollee at a Division I school, and you know, he texted me today. Just said spring ball went well. You know, they just ended spring ball, and he said, "Man, if I keep my head on straight, I think that I can get this job. Maybe this year, maybe next, or get it soon." So, you know, that goes to show you. And he's a very He's kind of like a excited, like Jameis Winston kind of personality. And, those kind of people can get huge NIL deals, you know what I mean? Because they just have that. And, but at the end of the day, like, you got to focus on football, man. You can't be focused on the dollar bill or whatever is going on. You got to be grinding on what you have in front of you, which is the game of football.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the same things that we talked about in the college. I think that there's a lot of good that can come from transferring, right? I know me and Evan did it in high school for, solid reasons. We didn't have a gold pot at the end of the rainbow. All we had was an opportunity to make a jump to a new school, to ultimately do something that had never been done at each respective high school, but then ultimately as well get film to live out a dream and to get tape and all that stuff. And it worked out for us, but we weren't leveraging the school we were at to, go up to. Now, Evan really did. He did go to an 8A school, but that wasn't, his reason was the 8A school had an opportunity where they needed a quarterback. He didn't leverage the 5A at Ponte Vedra High School to go to the 8A school. So I think it can be used for good. Where I get nervous is like some of the NIL stuff has been passed in South Carolina, and I know it has been in Georgia, and I think in North Carolina too, where are there going to be big time high schools that have big followings that are paying, kids $5,000 to come and play at the respective high school? I mean, it's coming, right?
I sure not, man. I mean, it's like, it goes back to like it's a privilege, not a right, to be able to play football. Like,
right.
I mean, Friday nights are some of the most sacred memories ever. And I mean, I can get chills just thinking about it. Just getting an opportunity to go play a football game with your boys after having to deal with a math class and all over crap throughout the day, and then go to the Sonic and cook out or whatever after the game. And I mean, it's not about ball and living life when it's like that.
Yeah, and I'll say this: there's a kid that I work with down in Orlando at a big high school, and he's a backup. He is waiting his turn. Kid in front of him is a huge prospect, and so at a school like that, if kids are getting paid to come there, then what happens to that kid with all of his boys? He'll never play. They're going to bring in somebody else, and so he'll be sitting trying to wait his turn. And they'll bring in somebody for $10,000 or $5,000, whatever, just to play quarterback. And now him and his buddies, who they've been playing together since they were 8, won't play together, just because he's not a Division I guy or what.
Which is wild. And I feel like it's. I mean, everything starts at the top. Like, what are these coaches doing? What are these ADs doing, man? Like,
Well, I can tell you, they're not developing the athlete in high school. It's much more developmental than it is in college, right? College, you've kind of most folks have kind of hit their threshold of ability, really. And most kids, I know most kids actually top out in high school, but you have much more developmental and informative years from the ages of 14 to 18 than 18 to 22. But you're right. The joy of playing at the high school level, there's nothing like it. Playing with your best friends to, ultimately do something at your school that has never been done, and or continue on a tradition, right?
What happened to just working summer jobs and playing football in the fall, making a little gas money? Is that just done with?
It is.
At the major high schools, it probably is. And maybe. I mean, hopefully not. But I remember even at the high school, Perry said I played at a big high school. I did. I mean, they had really great talent. I mean, one of the biggest high schools in the area, and I had a really good year. And they made a decision. I heard from under the grapevine that they were like, okay, are we going to keep Evan, or are we going to try to find somebody else or whatever? It wasn't because I played bad. We went to the Final Four. It was just a matter of fact that big high schools that want to win are always looking to either put a backup behind me or whatever it might be, but to make sure that they save their tail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right, Evan. You'll actually, this goes way under the radar because he ended up getting held back and ended up being like top 5 quarterback in the country for his class. We had a kid transfer into Ponte Vedra. His name was David Cornell. Do you remember him, Evan?
Yeah. Yeah.
He ended up moving to Oklahoma. The dude, he couldn't play. He couldn't. Moves to Oklahoma, reclasses. So he's like 95 years old in his graduating class. But he ends up and he goes to Alabama on full ride, number 3 quarterback in his class, right? Goes to the Elite 11, the whole 9 yards. And he came into our high school. And we had me, Evan, and my backup. We were all better than him. And he ended up leaving after one spring but the fact that it's that competitive now where you play at a big school, especially in the South, and you never know who's going to come in.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting, it's an interesting thing. It'll be interesting to see if we start hearing stories as our podcast continues of high school kids. And once that happens, it'll become national news. There will be a local business that, in a big city, right? Like I'm assuming it'll probably start in California, Florida, or Texas, where a school that's won 100 state titles wants to keep it rolling, and a local car dealership's given, new truck or G-Wagon or whatever the case might be to kids to whip around to represent the dealership, but to ultimately get them to transfer from. Because, let's be real, Evan, like if Sandalwood would have told you, hey, come be our starting quarterback. Oh, and by the way, here's a $75,000 truck.
He's there yesterday.
Come on.
It's a done deal, right? So that's where it's going. It might not even be in like monetary things, right? It might just be gear or the local restaurant where you eat for free forever, right? Or for, until you graduate. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So
you made me think of something when you were talking about that guy that ended up going to Elite 11 and Alabama and everything like that. How political do y'all think like the Elite 11, the Under Armours, and some of those showcases are?
That will lead into our next segment.
Yeah, they're 100% political. What a great topic for next week, though. I work the Under Armour camp. I'm working the one in Charlotte in 3 weeks.
Oh, sweet.
I worked the Under Armour combine last year as like the head quarterback coach. And it was, hey, you've got these 10 names to choose from. Yeah.
No, I just remember that's crazy. I remember going to I'll do the one in Charlotte and the one in Atlanta. And if you weren't in that 1A group, you weren't getting sniffed. I'm like,
no,
what are we doing, man?
No, we that was the first thing we did is when we broke out into and when we did quarterback drills, we were all together. But then when it came to throwing routes on air and one-on-ones, it was all right. These 12 are on the left cone and these 12 are on the right cone. And there was these 12 is who you choose from.
Yeah. And nowadays, and this is kind of what, I haven't gotten into. I did one Under Armour camp here locally in Jacksonville when they came here, but I haven't done any Elite 11 and all that stuff. But I see that quarterback coaches that run these things are picking and choosing their guys. And, I'm going to probably get a lot of slack for that, but at the end of the day, they are. And, I'm not saying that those kids aren't the best there, but highly unlikely to have 6 guys at the one Elite 11 thing that you train all those guys, that they choose. So, it's kind of like give everybody the right opportunity. I know that Elite 11 is a great, it's a cool setup the way they have it. But in regards to actually picking and choosing, let's choose who lets it rip and who doesn't.
So that's right. I agree. All right, last topic here. What is the goofiest, most overhyped quarterback mechanic that you have seen some of these dingbats try to coach on social media and or Twitter? I love, and we all love our dear friend down in the great state of Florida, Steven Garcia. For like 2 or 3 years there, Garcia would literally comment on people's Twitter video Instagram video and just point blank ask him, what the hell are you teaching these kids? Like,
I mean, someone's got to
comment
ask it.
and say, and then I would be like, I'll take a screenshot of it and send it to him and say, like, why did you say that? He said he'll just respond and say hashtag QB villain. And he just likes to stir the pot. And but anyway, he's right on a lot of stuff. And I think that you have elite guys out there, like some of the guys that I really like. I like the guy that works with Mahomes, the guy in the Midwest. His name's Jeff Christensen. I really like his stuff. He teaches a lot of base, good footwork, mechanics, finishing with balance. And me and Evan love the guy at QB Country.
Yeah,
David
they do.
Morris.
They do a great job.
Organization from top down. They're awesome. Anthony Boone does a great job in Charlotte. He's the closest QB Country, I guess, location to us. He does a phenomenal job with his guys.
And what, like, I know we're getting to the fun topics, but what are some of the things that all these guys do really well that are kind of the same? What, like QB Country, like Jeff Christensen or whatever his name is, that works with Pat Mahomes. Like, what are some of the same similarities that they have?
I think that they, number one and most important, is they practice real life stuff.
Yep.
They practice real quarterback movement drills, whether it be on platform, off platform, whether you're in the shotgun, they still work under center play action, or they'll get under center and throw a rhythm 5 on a bench route, where they'll kind of like a sail concept. They do all the different throws because that's ultimately what you're going to do.
It's game based. Like, it's not glamorous stuff always, and a lot of it's fundamentals, but it's game based. Like, that's what I try to preach a lot to parents that I'm talking to and the quarterbacks, is like, we're not going to go through meaningless drill or make fun throws. We're going to do situation and game related movements and exercises and throws. And I feel like people just get caught in this nuance of it's all just social media coaches, man.
Yeah, I mean, doing it for the likes for sure. I mean, you can definitely. I like to do this randomly with our guys, like a jump pass, like different stuff like that to make it fun at training. But that's not the basis of what we do, right? That can't be what you teach. That's just something fun that you can incorporate to last drill. Here we go. Let's do something fun, that kind of thing. But to go to the main question, I'll say this. I think I've never thought I would see this, but I saw literally one of the online quarterback coaches throwing underhand, and I was really confused. I thought it was a joke, but then I saw him show a video of a quarterback actually doing it at his training session, like complete underhand. Like, I was really dumbfounded at what I was watching, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit because that young kid has no clue, that he's doing that wrong. And so, I'll tell a quick story. I was at a mega camp for a Division I college and standing with the head coach of one of the schools. And we're standing there watching a kid throw complete sidearm, like level sidearm like that. And he looked at me, he's like, what the heck is that kid doing? And he was wearing a hat of one of the trainers that teaches that online. And, it really bugged me a lot because that's why Stephen Garcia probably commented on that stuff, because Stephen has a heart too, so we care about the kids and we want to make game like throws. So
I mean, you see kids now or that are being trained to almost be throwing a football like a submarine pitcher. Like, I'm like, what are we doing? Yeah, you see Mahomes. I mean, you can't even talk about, we're going to try to make mechanics. That dude has just God-given, unbelievable talent and makes those throws when he needs to. But if you give him a 3-second pocket to take a 3-step drop and a hitch, that thing isn't coming out down here. I don't care what anybody says. He has an innate ability to throw from different arm slots and make any throw on the field. But there's him, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, and Josh, I mean, there's very, very few guys that are playing at the highest level possible that do that when they need to. When they need to. But we got people that are teaching it like it's day one fundamental footwork.
Yeah.
I get super passionate about this because it's irritating to watch, knowing that these kids are paying a coach to have them go and do that, and then they're going to go to camps this summer, and quarterback coaches and head coaches are going to be like, "What the hell are you guys doing?"
Yeah,
I would never ever sign a kid, recruit a kid if I saw him throw the football that way.
No doubt. And you hit the nail on the head, Pat. Is like those quarterbacks do throw from different arm angles, and I'm not saying you can't practice different arm angles. Like a guy in your face, you're throwing a quick speed out. You got to get a little sidearm, like baseball throw, throwing from second to short, like whatever it might be. But that's not the basis of what you do in regards to warming up.
Situational football. Yeah, you got to work on that stuff.
Yeah, because you get more comfortable doing that. But like you said, you're right on. You don't practice that when you start fundamentally throwing. Like you're not. Patrick Mahomes isn't throwing a deep 20-yard comeback sidearm. He's not doing it.
If your warm up routine involves your arm dropping past your shoulder, your elbow down here, then that's what they're doing. Yeah. The other thing, and this is, I think Bryce Young was a big factor in this. And again, another super talented guy that's not a large quarterback, but I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. The whole like jump and throw and like land on your 2 feet with
Jordan Love throw. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, and I love the way like Jordan's style, but again, different kind of situation here. But I don't know, man. Like when you're making a 10-yard dig and jumping and flipping your entire body is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm gonna echo what you were saying. You've got to practice it because if you don't practice it, you'll never be able to make it. But if you don't practice the base mechanics of having a great base and working on extension in your throw and finishing with balance and keeping your elbow at least minimum even with your shoulder, you're going to end up hurting your arm, and then you're going to start spraying the ball all which way. But you do have to practice those sidearm throws, those unconventional throws, those off-platform throws if you want to make them in the game. But yeah, I think the funniest thing for me is listening to coaches talk about, okay, if you're moving in I was reading a debate with, it was Kurt Warner and the quarterback coach out of Atlanta. I can't remember his name.
Quincy Avery.
Quincy Avery, and they were going down the rabbit hole of moving with your right foot first or your
you just said Kurt Warner is debating with
Quincy Avery. Yeah. And
Quincy Avery, All-American, wasn't he?
Dude could spin. But
watch out, Deshaun might come get us.
But they were talking about sliding with your back foot first or your front foot first. And they went down, and I don't remember who sided with who, but just sitting there thinking like, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm arguing with a Hall of Fame quarterback who won a Super Bowl as a quarterback.
You gotta have some pride in your heart, Bo. You gotta have some pride for that one.
And to have the audacity to do that, I don't know where people get their stuff from. But hey, they took a leap of faith, and some people are really good at getting controversial, which gets attention on them. And it's an interesting deal. But anywho, that'll be more to come as the QB1 podcast unravels. I think tonight was extremely informative on the college football playoff, the transfer portal, conference realignment, and these weirdos coaching God knows what. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we close it up shop tonight?
If you guys do want to learn about playing the quarterback position the right way, May 1st. QB1 Experience program is going to be
go,
here,
man.
and we're fired up about it. Going through everything you can imagine when it comes to playing the quarterback position and doing it the right way. So we're super excited, and we're going to have some more details, more teasers coming out here in the next couple of weeks, but we'll be live here soon.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we put the Instagram, and if you see this on YouTube, Spotify, whatever you see, we'll make sure all the links are in the description. Guys, subscribe, please. Let's go. You want to see this content? It's really, really great content.
Subscribe to the page. Check us out. QB1 Experience coming to an iPhone app, Android app near you, May 1st. We're excited about it. Episode 4, in conclusion, subscribe to the page, follow us on social media, and look forward to being back next week.